Blended workforces are one of the hottest talent strategies today, where employers are using a mix of traditional employees with external resources like independent contractors, coaches, consultants, vendors, and technology solutions, all in order to enhance competitiveness, ensure cost flexibility, and expedite business goals. But how are the successful companies infusing blended workforces into their business strategy? And what are the critical success factors and pitfalls to avoid during implementation? And on the flip side, what does it really take for suppliers to improve their chances of finding and landing contract opportunities? The devil is in the details, my friends. I'm your host, Karen Farrell Rhodes, and it's time to get smarter about blended workforces at work. Hello, my dear superstars. Welcome to another episode of the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. This is Karen, and I'm super thrilled to welcome you to today's show. Now, on today's show, we are just tickled pink to feature an absolutely fantastic guest by the name of Valerie Khayutin. I probably murdered it. It's Khayutin. She was going to correct me in a minute because I want her to get her name correctly. But she is the head of the North America market for Badesofa, which is a German-based company that provides luxury home spas through a wonderful line of bathing products catered to wellness and well-being. So if you want a luxury spa feel within your home, you've got to check them out. And they have expanded from Europe to the US and are really making a big presence here as they expand. So definitely check out the show notes and go to their website and see their offerings. I didn't know about them before we recruited Valerie to come on the podcast, and now I told her I'm in love. She's on my shopping list. I've added the company on the shopping list to check things out. Well, Valerie has a proven track record in helping to advise on operating early stage companies in the consumer brands in the health and wellness market, including companies such as Danone, Freshly, and Root Logic. And I was super excited to have her on the show today because she actually runs a blended workforce team herself. So she lives and breathes it every single day. And I just learned that she also started out as a consultant. So she was on the other side of the table as well. So can't wait to hear how she does it today, what was her experience when she was a consultant, and any advice that she may have. So welcome to the show, Valerie.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay, you got to pronounce for the audience your name because I know I murdered it, but please do.
It's Valerie Khayutin.
Khayutin.
It's a really
Okay.
tricky one.
It is. You've been so gracious. I tried, so I hope I get an A for effort at least. All right, Valerie. Well, we have a lot to talk about today, but before we get started, we would love for you to share for just as much as you feel comfortable. If you can give us a sneak peek into your life outside of work.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Russia, which is where the last name coming from and the accent, because I know a lot of people are wondering, and I get asked that a lot. But I actually lived in New York for 17 years. So it's been a while. And recently, in the past couple of months, we made the move to California. And all of my free time when I'm not working is just spent adjusting to the new lifestyle.
I bet.
It's such a change culturally, energetically, kind of what you do outside of work. It's very, very different. So I'm adjusting, doing my best to love it and get used to it. And good news is that I have a little toddler who really loves it here. So I think that's an encouraging sign.
It definitely is. Now, how did you adjust to a very short winter, if a winter at all?
I miss the snow. I miss the cold. I mean, I'm from Russia and then I lived in New York for such a long time. That is just such a part of my life, like bundling up in the warm coat and a hard cup of coffee and a hat. So I think that's been actually really tough for me not having a winter. But I'm sure that you ask me the same question in 2 years and I will be like, what winter? It's amazing.
Probably so. We have some very close friends who are Russian, and there's actually a nice sized community here in Atlanta. And that's what Vadim and his family always say. They said they love the changing of the weathers here, but they do miss the cold of Russia. That's what they grew up in. So I totally get it. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Well, let's start by, if you don't mind, sharing a little bit about how you started your career before your position now, just to give our listeners a little idea of your background from a professional perspective.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I actually started my career as a consultant. So I worked for a pretty large management consulting firm in Russia. And then that's what brought me to New York in the first place. I came for a project and I continued that work for a couple of years and it just never left. So I ended up going to business school in the US. And after my MBA, that's when I made the transition to the in house general management. And then for nearly 7 years, I was managing large global brands. So very corporate, very structured CPG approach. And then I did pretty much the same thing, like managing, launching, building businesses, but for startups. And that's been an interesting journey. I launched and brought to market and built growth startups that went through the acquisition, some that are continue to grow, and some that are in very early stages, like Badesofa in the North America right now. And I think what's interesting is that one thing that they all have in common, no matter the size of the business, whether it's global or local or what type of the business, is that the team and how you build a team and how you structure the team is really the key to the success.
I love you said that because you're so right. I've had, you know, more years than I can imagine, 20 plus years in corporate. But in the consulting side of advice, similar to you, companies of different sizes and the composition of the teams and their skill sets, their diversity of perspectives is so important to the success of the company and also to the individual workers as well for their fulfillment. And so, that's one of the reasons why we have the podcast is in better understanding workforce structures and how companies get things done. And sometimes they're successful and sometimes they have to make tweaks to their workforce. So I'm just curious, can you tell us a little bit more about your team at Badesofa
Yeah,
and
my
the work
team.
that you all do?
Yeah, and my team is truly the representation of this blended workforce. I have a fairly small team. I'm a big believer in lean teams in general and in this industry specifically. But I have about 10 people now, and it's a real combination of internal team, which is only 2 people now, and the rest is part-time freelancers, consultants, agencies, and my team is completely dispersed globally, so which allows me this flexibility, right? Like I easily moved from New York to California without really losing any productivity because my team is some of it based in Germany, a couple of people based in Germany, in Spain, in Canada, New York, California, so everywhere, truly. And we're kind of managing it very seamlessly because of the processes that we have established.
That sounds amazing. I might have to volunteer to be part of your team. It sounds like a fantastic mix. But let's pull back the layers of the onion a little bit. And can you share a bit more on what you do as a leader to try to help your team's operations to be more seamless? Are there tools that you use? And how do you keep them energized and focus on the company culture?
The way I view it personally is that I think that whether it's an internal team member or part-time, full-time consultant agency, doesn't matter. You have to treat them as one cohesive unit, as one team. And from my experience being on a consulting side, kind of on the other side of the spectrum than big companies, small companies, I see that this approach truly works best. And to me, that encompasses two kind of crucial things. One is sharing goals together. So the strategic objectives, and the results that we're trying to accomplish, it's shared among everybody on the team, and not kind of everybody just having totally separated individual KPIs without seeing or understanding how that ties to the entire picture and how that ties to other consultant or freelancers KPIs. I think it's absolutely important. So every quarter and every month we go over strategic plans. I share how we're performing. I share what overall company goals are, what the priorities are, even if that doesn't necessarily touch their respective discipline. I think it's absolutely important for them to know. And a lot of times when we're having the conversations, things that outside of kind of their specific scope would come up. And I think that just enriches the entire team experience and makes everyone so much better. Like, for example, operational consultant would say, hey, I know that you mentioned that you need to improve customer service. I actually know somebody, this company that does customer service for another one of our clients, and they're phenomenal. Do you want an introduction? Like, this conversation come up. Or in Mother's Day promotion, for example, we're just running, one of the consultants brought up a really, really crucial point about sensitivity, about mothers around Mother's Day, and that we need to give people an opportunity to unsubscribe from emails, for example, things like that. That's not necessarily her area of expertise or her discipline, but she has preview to what other companies are doing and a broader scope. And I think that those insights are so valuable that you just cannot ignore it.
No, absolutely. And that's kind of the team helping the team, if you will. And they're all in to make sure that you all are operating the best and have the access to the best procedures and talents and everything that they observe, even from other companies, taking that, what I call it, institutional knowledge, sharing that, to help make everybody better. Now, I'm curious, did you, for the people that are not traditional employees on your team, were they people you knew, or referrals, or former or contractors that you put out an RFP and interviewed for? How did you find some of those people that ended up being part of your team?
Well, the short answer is all of the above. Most of my current team members came either through team members that I worked with in the past, or so I just worked with this consultant before or agency before, and I brought them on board, which I think is a very common approach. Or another true gem is really through the referral of those team members that already part of my unit. And I found that this is really crucial. So, for example, my PR consultant, I found her through the referral of another agency that I work with, and they want the best for the team. They know what we're trying to accomplish, how we operate as a company, and they really able to recommend the right person. And I find that that's a really important, very crucial aspect.
Oh, amazing. And one of the things we do try to do via the podcast is to help, vendors, suppliers, and external talent like consultants and contractors and what have you, know that they have to work very hard to be even considered on the short list for, potential contracts. And they too have to be skilled at networking and then do a great job so that they are referred. Because you're right, referrals are one of the number one ways that we've discovered via our research and in talking with those hiring managers, that that's how they find their short list. Nobody wants to take a chance on someone totally unknown if they don't have to. I don't know if you feel the same way, or do you have a different perspective on that?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's not necessarily taking the chance. It's just that there's so many ways that you can go about this. Looking for the same position, there's so many people that you can interview, people that you can potentially bring on board, and a lot of them are very much qualified and very knowledgeable. So it's so hard to weed out and figure out who's the right person is. And a lot of times through the referrals, it kind of narrows down the list for you, especially when the referral comes from somebody who really knows your operating style, who really knows your company, understands the industry. I think that just makes it just builds a level of trust, makes it just a little bit easier. But honestly, I would say that I'm not opposed of taking a chance and hiring somebody that didn't come through a referral, that completely unknown, and just testing out, just trying to work together for a month or two and kind of see what happens. I'm actually right now talking to somebody who came completely not referred by anybody through one of the CEOs entrepreneurial group that I'm part at, and he reached out to me, offered his services, and we having a conversation right now, and I'm strongly considering bringing him on board.
Oh, excellent. Well, good. Well, I'll keep our fingers crossed for this person. I hope they have a chance to work with you. That would be great fortune there. So, Valerie, also, when managers have to manage their external talent, they know that, well, in the US, there's IRS guidelines around that on how much you can give them direct work direction. They have to be pretty somewhat independent, but that doesn't mean that they can't be infused into a permanent team. And you were so kind to share that you have a perspective on how corporations or managers that are bringing on external talent definitely need to consider respecting, their bandwidth and availability. And I wondered if you could share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. So another part of bringing them as a full team and building a cohesive unit is, at least in my team, I am very specific about having at least once a week shared meeting. So everybody is kind of like an all hands. It's really a marketing meeting because majority of my team is marketing.
Uh-huh.
But once a week, we all meet for 1 hour, no matter what your time zone is. I'm kind of figure out the time that works for everybody. And we always have conversations and talking about the strategy, talking about updates on the project. I think it's really important, but at the same time, knowing that majority of my workforce is consultants or freelancers, I'm always very specific about respecting their bandwidth. So sometimes they have to tell me, hey, you know what, next week I'm not going to be able to make it because I have a really important pitch for another client, or I have an editor meeting, or whatever it is, and that's fine. It's totally kind of part of working with blended forces. People let you know, people have other arrangements, and you have to be respectful of this. And then another aspect of it is, since I do have internal team members that are full time, it's super crucial to let them know of when the consultant is available, when they're not available, what their scope of work is, like what they should or should not ask them for, because I think that creates a shared understanding and eliminates this uncomfortable interaction on the side of consultant or a team member when a team member is asking for something that's not really in a consultant scope, and they don't want to say no, right? Because they want to be a team member, and they truly want to accomplish the same goals, but that's really not what they brought in to do. And how do you kind of manage this? Like, so in my, what I try to do up front is eliminate that by being very transparent of when the person is available, what they brought in to do, what's not in their scope, and always encouraging that communication. Like, if we overstepping, if I'm asking for another meeting, for example, and that's really not something that they can swing in this week or next week, they should always let me know, because I think those boundaries are super important. And knowing that this is a part-time consultant, I want them to have other clients, right? I want them to continue to thrive and grow, because I think that at the end is only going to be beneficial for me as well.
Absolutely. And I love you brought that up because a lot of managers don't do that. They don't, I found anyway, when I consult on with blended workforce strategies, they miss that piece of instructing their permanent teams to if they're unsure on how to leverage the external workforce, to come to them and ask, what's the best way? And for the leader to be able to manage the workflow better between both your internal and external workforces. So keeping those lines of communication open, as you said, is absolutely key. And you don't also want to put, I guess, the consultants in a bad situation, because they want to be part of the team and they want to provide excellent work of what they're skilled to do. And it's hard for them to say no if they get a side request and they're not sure if that's in scope or not, right? So I think you're right, it's very, very important to help guide your teams on how to work with consultants and to know if there's a pivot needed, where you might need to give the consultant more work versus not, but you've got to be the lead communicator, right, of that, because you're the top leader.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's another aspect that's really important with this is that we just talked about referral when consultants refer other consultants when I'm looking to hire somebody, right? But I think it works the other way too. You, as an organization and as a leader, have to respect the boundaries of a consultant and respect them as a person, really, and have good relationships so they recommend other people in their network to come and work for you and do a great job for your company, because I think it works both ways, right? It's not just consultants looking for a job, it's also the companies looking to hire the best consultants, and in order to do that you have to have respect and boundaries and good reputation with them too.
Absolutely. You're spot on. Now, I'm not sure if well, I guess you may know because they're on your team, but just to share with like my vendor and supplier listeners out there, for your company, do you have them register into a vendor management system, or do you all just send their invoices to your finance department? Are there any processes it takes to onboard a new consultant coming in to work with you all?
Well, I think one thing to keep in mind that Badesofa right now is we're operating like a startup. So we're fairly young in the US, this entity specifically. So I don't have a ton of crazy processes and anything super formal. The way I usually do it is we sign the contract. The invoices go directly to, the accounting team to pay it. I review it, of course, but that's kind of a standard. And the way to onboard it, I always I have a kind of a folder that's shared for all of the consultants, whether it's related to their work or not. Like if it's an operations consultant, they still get to see all of the marketing materials and marketing strategy and the forecast for a year. I think it's super important for them to kind of see all of the documentation. Of course, I wouldn't share anything sensitive or like a full P&L, but they always get onboarding materials. They poke around, they see all of the visuals, all of the images that available, but they also always get onboarded into Slack. We have a shared Slack channel for kind of Team US, and all of whether it's a part-time, full-time agency, everybody is there, and they get introduction, warm welcome from the team. And I think it's really important just to kind of start the conversation, even if they only working for the business 3 hours a week, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they need to know the foundation on what you're trying to do and your vision, and like you said, the images, especially for marketing, but your images, so that they have insights on how they can best contribute. I think that is fantastic, a fantastic approach. Absolutely. Well, before we let you go, Valerie, as you know, I wrote a book on the research I did on how some of the world's most high performing leaders differentiate their success. And out of the book came many tactics that they approached and did and included in their leadership efforts. So I always say you need the best of the best to help run blended workforces, because they can be quite tricky at sometimes. But you were so kind to share that leading with a drive for result was a tactic that really resonated with you. And for my listeners, all 7 that we write about out of the research study are as equally important. You just use them at different times. But leading with a drive for results to kind of really jumped out for you. And for those who don't know, leading with a drive for results is all about being tenacious, about making sure your end goal is met, even if you have to have pivots or do different things along the way. So inquiring minds want to know, Ms. Valerie, why did leading with a drive for results really resonate with you?
Yeah, like you said, I think that all of them are super important and equally important, really. That one stands out for me specifically because I think that any business is hard, and consumer business and D2C specifically, which is what we're doing right now, is really, really tough and very competitive space.
Yeah.
And I think that my personal belief is that about 80% of it comes from execution
Yeah.
and really that drive to achieve what you said you're going to achieve.
That's right.
I think that ideas and higher vision is great and needed and is a core, absolutely must. But really, the difference between success and failure comes from execution. And that's why when I saw drive for results as one of the pillars in your book, that really resonated for me personally at this stage of this business and with what we do.
Oh, I love that. And I'm just curious, Valerie, on a side note, you know, being a leader in a high growth company that is expanding to the US or has expanded to the US and is really building your mark in a very challenging industry, what do you do to keep yourself focused and doing your best that you can as a leader? Are there any hidden secrets that you have that you do to be the best leader that you can?
Well, aside from just meditating, taking a deep breath, and just trying to keep your sanity, I think that actually goes back to what we just discussed about drive for results and keep going. What I personally do, my personal tool is that every Monday morning, I start from organizing myself, thinking through what are the biggest things that we need to accomplish, going back to those monthly planning, quarterly planning, but then how does that translate to my weekly priorities? And you usually, in any business, you have like a laundry list of hundreds of things that need to be done. But truly, every month and every Monday morning, I discover that I only have 3 or 4 that are the biggest priorities with the biggest ROI that I absolutely must get done. And the rest, I kind of not necessarily not going to do because some of these just have to get done. But you prioritize them accordingly. And I always focus on the most important things that need to get done. So let's say those 3 or 4, and I schedule them accordingly on my calendar, and the rest I kind of just take a deep breath in and keep going through the week. I think that's really important, just prioritization and choosing your most important things that you need to accomplish versus trying to do it all.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Prioritization leads to resilience. I think that is a great approach. Well, Valerie, before we close it out, we will have a ton of information in our show notes about you and Badesofa and where folks can find you. But I always love to give space on the podcast for you to share as well. So if people want to learn more about the company or more about you personally, where can they find you?
Badesofa.com. It's a Badesofa. Karen, we talked about it in the beginning that a lot of people in the US pronounce it as Badesofa. That's
Yeah.
how it's spelled phonetically, but it's a Badesofa, and it's literal translation from German as a bath sofa. So it's
That's so
exactly as it sounds. You're kind of building a really luxurious, really comfortable sofa set within your bathtub.
love it. That's why it's on my short list to go look at after this podcast. And you personally, can they connect with you on LinkedIn? Are you there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Valerie, for your gift of your time. You have been a fantastic guest, and we appreciate your perspectives on blended workforces.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you to listeners for the gift of your time as well. We know there are many other podcasts that you could be listening to, but you chose us and we don't take it lightly. Please be sure to like and share with just one friend out there because together we all can get better at being smarter about blended workforces at work. Thank you so much and see you next week. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you again for listening to the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at blendedworkforcesatwork.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand, contract, fractional, or project basis. Huge thanks to the SDL production and editing team for a job well done. Bye for now.